off switch.
Sure.
But even with that dimmer, you can get a little bit more used to that light. So
yeah, it's a great point.
Always dropping some gems, Titus. I love it already. And we haven't even gotten to the creative side. Now, you had mentioned your creative side or lack thereof earlier, but I beg to differ with all the ideas that I see always stewing in your brain.
Yeah.
Tell me how you've exercised that creative part of yourself, your mind.
I ask myself questions that great people have asked. As a coach, I ask clients this all the time. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? That question, I remember thinking through that question. I think people love to talk. I mean, they want to be heard. People like to hear the sound of their own voice. Even when people go, "Ooh, I hate the way I sound," down deep inside, they're like,
they really want to hear them, right?
People love to hear them. So people love talking. They're addicted to it, and that's okay. But I think that you talk through problems. You, however, must think through solutions. And so I remember thinking a lot as a young person, and even to this day, I think more today than I've ever done. And I actually allocate time. I budget my time to thinking. And so for me, when I ask questions of myself and I sit in a peaceful, restful, maybe even meditative state to think through things like, what would I do if I knew that I couldn't fail? The inspiration that sparks and the creativity that becomes the result of that inspiration is special. And I tell myself that even if this creative, wonderful idea never comes to fruition, the fact that it was born, that it was given birth and life because I thought through something, that in of itself is the win. That's the thing. People determine results all the time as whether or not something should happen a second or a third time. Did we close the sale? Oh, we didn't? Well, then let's not do it anymore that way. And I think that what's so uninspiring is people live their life through this magnifying glass of experience where people say, I've got to have experience. How many years of experience do you have? Experience is such a big deal for people. And where experience will tell you, oh, I will never do it. I'm never going to do that again. Mm-hmm. But when you quietly rest in an experience and you give yourself time to think through it and you reflect upon it, you'll get something called insight. And insight will teach you to never do it that way again, not necessarily to never do it again. And so for me, creativity is that. I find that people stop their creativity because they think, I thought of this thing, I was creative, but then it never came to fruition. So therefore, stop being creative. I must not be a creative person. And I tell people, the fact that your mind thought, the fact that you connected dots, that is where, if it only stops there, you won.
Yep.
That's it. I think we're all capable of being highly creative. When they plant a seed, an apple seed, and an apple comes, but what comes out of the tree is not an apple pie. They think, I ought to not plant another apple seed.
Come on now.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that if you would just appreciate and value the fact that the tree grew, maybe even if it doesn't bear fruit, and if the apple comes forth, but maybe it's not an apple pie, at what point are you going to just cherish and celebrate the fact that you were able to create? There is no greater gift. There is no greater identifying bridge between us and whatever God we might follow. I mean, if you take the essence of what a God is, it is nothing more or nothing less than a creator. And the moment we get to be creative, we get to be in the image and likeness of that in which we hope for.
That's it. I was going to say, we are here to create.
Yeah. There's really nothing greater and bigger. If you would ask Dr. King, he'd tell you, I was born to create a movement. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're all supposed to create.
Yeah.
And I think people kill their own creativity because they were thinking an apple pie would come out. They get disappointed when an apple comes out.
Apple comes out,
and
right?
I go, do you understand how hard it was for that apple to come out?
Right.
So I inspire and encourage people to dedicate time to think, dedicate time to appreciate and value what creativity is, and cherish every part of it. Every part of it.
Yeah, and when you look around, everything that we see around us came from a creative mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Was sparked from an idea that somebody had.
Yeah.
Most likely sitting in silence or frustration that there wasn't something else like that around.
Yeah.
So how can I then use my creative abilities to bring this about?
Yeah.
The other great point that you bring up, because I'm going to skip now ahead
Okay.
to the nowness, because you bring up, the importance of being in silence.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, and especially I'm going to speak to our society, but, with technology, that we're constantly on the go. We're constantly, Our minds are constantly going, inundated with all this information. And it's hard for a lot of people to sit in that silence. Mm-hmm. So how do you do it? How do you find the time? And what do you suggest to people, when it comes to just being present in the now?
I would say not to be defiant to a concept or an underlying theory, but okay. So first, let me say this: we use it as an excuse that with technology and everything, we're so busy and it's so hard for our minds to slow down. But what if that is just an excuse and a crutch that we've created? Like, what if 100 years ago they were just as busy in their mind? What if 500 years ago they were just as busy? Human history has never had a day off. And so I think sometimes we may say, well, gosh, it must be harder today than it was then. People used to be scared of a paper cut because they were dying of paper cuts. Medicine was at a point where if you were coughing too hard or if there was blood in the handkerchief when you coughed, you surely would die. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that we have less that riddled our minds 100 years ago or 500 years ago. I mean, I'm just trying to communicate that I think that even if there's some truth in the fact that it's tougher today, let's never let that be a crutch. It was really hard for them too. Mm-hmm. And I start there. So when you ask, how do I do it? One, I never try to say what I'm going to have to do today is harder than what someone else had to do then. And then I immediately say, of myself, I am nothing. That it is through only the grace of a loving God. It is only through the support of wonderful partners and friends like you, Dr. Silas, like other people, that I'm able to find the calm and the quiet. I also believe that our words are powerful. Our intentions are powerful. And sometimes we have to scream, peace be still, to create our moment. If all we do is wait for the moment of quiet to take our rest, we might find ourselves restless. We must sometimes scream peace into a situation so that we might create the moment that we're waiting for. Mm-hmm. It's that creative ability that can create the moment of quiet and rest and peace so that we might advance our mind, our heart, our situation. So how do I do it? I never compare. I am aware of my God and my partners and my relationships. I am very astute of how powerful my intention and words are. That I can stop any moment. There's a really cool story in the Bible where there was a guy named Joshua, and he needed more sunlight in the day because during the day his army was winning, but at night he didn't have the tools and the resources to win. They had a better army when it came to nighttime. They had tools and resources when it was dark, and they couldn't compete in the dark. But now when the light was out, boy, it was on. It was on, like, you know what I mean? They could fight. And so he asked God to make the sun stand still so that it would be light longer. I think that what is possible in our own desire is greater than we think. So there are days and moments and times where I scream peace and stillness into my moment and create it and then take advantage of it. See, we're always the victim of a moment because something happens to us, but we don't have to be the victim. We can be the one that creates, that shakes, that stimulates a moment. And then if we're smart, intentional, and thoughtful, we'll do something with that moment. And I think what you're talking about is having rest and peace and reflecting inside that moment. When you can be in control of your moment, you'll do more with it. So you might not find out you're in a moment till halfway into it if it happens to you. You don't have to play the victim all the time. You can create even that moment of rest. That introspective opportunity can be something that your hand painted into existence.
I mean, you're touching on all of these these concepts that are so important.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have a comment for everything that you said, but just overall, it's really about being okay with that silence. It like even in my daily practice and process, I have to remind myself, because sometimes I'll find myself getting kind of giddy or jittery or whatever, like antsy or whatever it is, because I'm like, I feel like there's something I have to do. But it's in that moment I can now consciously remind myself it's okay. Yeah. Peace, be at peace, be still. And then in those still moments, now I can create stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it really is just a great reminder to people, like, it's okay to be still. Even when people come to therapy, some people may come for a loss. And they want to be healed and better immediately.
Yeah.
And I think that may lead to a lot of people reaching for medication to work through grief.
Sure.
To me, that doesn't always necessarily make the best sense, because it doesn't allow you to be in that darkness, to be in the stillness, to then appreciate the light even more down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think if we deal with it, if we deal with why we dislike the still and the quiet, if we really meditate on it, we'll find out that it's because in that quiet place, we might even hear our own heartbeat. Like, we become the center of the moment when it's quiet. And, as much as we want to be heard, when it comes time, when the stuff hits the fan and it's quiet and you can hear your heartbeat and you feel the breath come out of your body, it reminds you of maybe your mortality. If you hear a shortness in breath, it could stimulate, I probably need to work out. I mean, like all of this stuff comes when we become the center of our own attention.
Yep.
When we become the center of our own attention, it's scary.
It's scary.
Because we see everything. We see the dirt. We hear the shortness of breath. We start to analyze everything that is not right. And we get scared of that place, but what would be so beautiful is if we would realize that it's in that place. It's in that moment that the greatest creations can come. Because we have our full attention. Could you imagine? My children always want my undivided attention. My spouse wants my undivided attention. What would happen if you would give yourself your undivided attention? I want to challenge every listener to give yourself your undivided attention and watch what would come from that. I'm a big believer in emotions and pain. We feel something because we gave it attention, and therefore it has access. And I just want to challenge everyone. I just want to challenge everyone. If you would give yourself your undivided attention, boy, it would be pretty amazing what you would create,
right?
Solve and see through.
I'm telling it reminds me, I don't know if you've ever seen Family Guy, but
you mean the greatest cartoon in the history of
mankind. I know, right? But there's an episode where he's like, Mom, Mommy.
Yeah.
And I think about that with our emotions, right? And until, just like you said, with your kids, like, they're going to keep calling you until you pay attention. Yeah. And our emotions are the same way. They're going to be that little Stewie, like, Mom.
Yeah.
Until you pay attention.
Agreed.
And now you can do something with it.
Yeah, I agree. I listen to people all the time. They'll say, I had this really great idea, but someone else beat me to it. They created this product. Now it's a multi-million-dollar idea. But I had that idea long before they did. I was thinking about that years ago. And I go, what happened was your creativity was saying, Mom. Your desire for greatness, your ability, what you're capable of was tugging at your shirt, trying to get your attention. You ignored it. Now you want to lash out. Now you want to get angry and bitter and mad.
At them
because you didn't take action. The difference between successful and unsuccessful people is only this. Successful people do the stuff that both parties don't like to do. And you don't do those things and then complain about it later. When your greatness and your creativity and your desire was pulling at you, trying to get your attention. It was doing it for you, not for it. So maybe even unlike a child who is demanding of your attention because it wants the attention. for its desires.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my greatness, my emotions, my desires, all of those things, sometimes they want my attention not for them, but for